Pharrel Williams and Dave Matthews are here. One is a 10-time Grammy Award-winning producer, songwriter, fashion icon, and artist. The other has sold more than 35 million albums and is the front man of the only group to have 6 consecutive albums debut at #1. On Sunday, they joined forces to raise money and awareness in wake of the violence in Charlottesville. It is called A Concert for Charlottesville, an evening of music and unity. I'm pleased to have both of them at this table. Welcome. How did this concert come about? This is your hometown, by the way.
This is
You're from South Africa.
Lived in a lot of places in my life, but most of the band is born and raised in Charlottesville, and I love that town. It's more home than anywhere in the world for me, and my family if the band is my family, which they are, that is where my family's from in a sense. And when this happened, that terrible day happened in Charlottesville, the immediate response is horror. But then after that, you think, what can we do? How can, when we've as a country we've pretended to acknowledge, or in ways we've been faced with our history and the horrors of our past, of slavery and the struggle for civil rights. We faced that, and we have this pretense that we've dealt with it, But
Charlottesville showed otherwise.
Charlottesville showed us that ungrounded hatred that's born out of ignorance and out of a history that can be picked apart and rearranged, it twisted the truth to a point where there was violence, unjustifiable violence, and rage and hatred unfounded, because racism and hatred in that sense comes out of ignorance and a denial of the truth, and murder. And that's a terrible way for the world. I knew we had to do something, because Charlottesville, I would go a year ago and someone anywhere in the world, or even in the U.S., and people say, you guys are from Charleston, right? West Virginia, where are you all from? Now everybody knows Charlottesville. People in Nairobi know, people in Cape Town know where Charlottesville is. They know it, and they know it's where Nazis are. And that's not my town. And that's part, but it's not my town.
So the decision came, let's do a concert.
Yeah, and I called on another Virginian.
From Virginia Beach?
Yes, sir.
Here, people are coming together at a concert, in a sense, to reflect what?
I just think that as a country, we need to open our eyes. And then there are people who say, what? And, oh, why are you making such a big deal? Well, it's like, if you're not African American, you don't understand what it's like to be African American in this country. I may look like I am successful. It may seem like I am successful, but if I am only enjoying it and there's millions and millions upon millions that are not, then I'm not successful. I'm successful when we're all successful. And, being from Virginia, I know there is systemic racism. I seen it growing up. And we just, when Dave's camp reached out, I just thought it was a great opportunity to sort of turn on a light, to get people to understand, this is a very real thing. And you feel like you can relate. But you know what? When you go to bed, we're still black. We're still dealing with this. I'm African American. That means Africa is in me. But American means this is where I am. This is what I'm subject to. So when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we're saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the progression, to some of the progression that's happened in this country, but it's mostly for the potential. It's mostly for the potential of what this country could be if enough of the logical minds get together and reasonable minds get together to make fair and just laws and have people to uphold them. Because right now, we're having unarmed motorists murdered, and we're having officers who are supposed to uphold the law, we're having them be acquitted, left and right. What kind of message does that send to a child? So it's like, it's steps like this with what Dave and I are trying to do. It's just like bringing the culture together so that we can talk and be realistic about these issues. You know, when you have a president that says these beloved statues, well, these statues represented a time when people talk about heritage. It's a heritage of what? Of people who wanted to fight to keep slavery. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you have people complaining left and right about like Kaepernick, like taking a knee during the national anthem. Well, you know what? You know, when you see people saying, oh, you know, there's a time and place for everything. Well, you know what? You're right. There is a time and place for everything. The time is right now. The place is right here.
The point of this is to do what? Is to open a conversation about America today, and to, because what happened in Charlottesville in part was the unmasking of white supremacy.
I was talking to Pharrel earlier and talking about, listening to you too, about what this could be, and that this should be not one event that says, hey, you know, let's shine a light on what's possible and the truth of a future that incorporates more honestly everybody. Let's also acknowledge the terrible racism and bigotry that exists in this country, and the true history of this country, but also that this should be something that goes on, that we should be acknowledging and celebrating this into the future, because the only way we can change the way that this creeping, fearful, hateful racism, the only way we can stop it from continuing to grow or continuing to exist and continuing to murder people, innocent people, and keep people from being able to do what they want to do in their lives or having the advantage of what they want to do in their lives. We have to shine a light on it, and we have to shine a light on bigotry honestly. We have to say, what is our past? What was slavery? You know, who built Harvard? Who built the White House? Who built UVA? Who built that? Was it Thomas Jefferson? I mean, he had a pencil. But what brilliant craftspeople, what amazing people, talented people did that? Where are their names listed? You know, and we need to look at our past and see that we not only was slavery the subjugation of an entire people, people whose cultures were stolen from them, or a great effort, but also, in my opinion, this is my humble opinion, but also it was a lie that we tell ourselves that the people that were the birth of this country were somehow supermen that built an economy by themselves. They didn't build the economy that allowed this country to be what it is without being on the backs of thousands of people who did not get acknowledged.
So what was your reaction when you heard the president's first response to this?
Several things. I was appalled that someone that holds the highest office would have that kind of tone-deaf reaction.
Suggesting there was fault on all sides, he said.
Right. Until your people have done to you what's been done to us for over 400 years. In layers, though. In layers. In layers. And I also wasn't surprised, you know? I also wasn't surprised. Like, no one listened to me when I said, hey, man, pay attention to this guy.
Because?
He knows what he's doing. And he's supported from so many different angles. Like,
you think those white supremacists and those neo-Nazis were given...
They are being used, just so you know. They are being used, okay? When they look up and realize that their like grandparents are no longer eligible for Medicaid's gonna be gone, the health care is gonna implode the way it is, like insurance is gonna go up. When they recognize how they're being used, you know, it's going to be very interesting when they realize how they're being used. Because it really, at the end of the day, you go with the flow. If you're trying to use a system and not have a system use you, you figure out the way the current is going. And so if you see that racism is a very easy wave to ride, you ride that. If really what it's about for you is classism. Because that's really at the
economic classism.
Of course, at the end of the day, it's what this is about. The tax structure tells you everything you need to know. Because if you have enough money, it doesn't matter what color you are if the taxes make sense for you. So it's not, is it really? Like you use racism because you know racism is the easiest thing to keep people at each other's necks, especially when you compartmentalize cultures.
So what do you think, Pharrell, is going to be necessary to change, for the country to change, especially on the question of race?
Before you can ever get to any kind of appreciation, you have to have empathy. Everybody has to be willing to open their eyes and step outside of their comfortable box of understanding and put yourself in another person's shoes. And there's just not many people willing to do that. There's just, I wish, I hope, and I pray, but empathy is the only way, only until you have to subject your son or daughter, which I have 3 sons and a daughter now, only until your children get in a position where they're susceptible to this kind of treatment is when you start thinking about these things. See, the opioid, it's an issue now. Before they were locking black people up, blacks and Hispanics, they were locking them up. Now it's like, don't lock them up, let's get them treatment. Mm-hmm. Because it's spread. And that is the way these things work. And that's what the supremacists, that's what they all should understand. Like, you know what? It's all good now. But historically, it wasn't just the Jewish community or the Africans or the Hispanics or, you know, the Latinos or the Indian. It wasn't just them. It was also, it got to a point where they started like being prejudiced against facial features, eye color, and hair color. Yeah. You know, that did happen. And it can happen in this country too.
And height. And I mean, there was that not long ago, you know, they're saying, how do we choose
100%.
the right size of person? What's the best, the eugenic, that was a real thing. And that's all that happens. If you succeed in separating, oh, this is the group that we want, ideally. If you start like that, then soon enough, that's going to get chopped in half. You're just going to keep going down that. What we need, the word empathy is the perfect word. It's also to understand that we're together, or to gain the understanding that the only way we can truly move forward is to realize we're in the same boat.
Yes.
And the boat, I mean, it's because we don't realize that black men are being, unarmed black men are being shot, and the people that shoot them are being let off. And that is
by juries.
By juries and by judges. That is that we can't see that is happening so frequently and all you have to do to understand how crazy it is imagine a white kid or a white young man in a car, unarmed, being shot 5 times by a police officer. Can you imagine the outrage? Murdered, and then
or somebody taking a car and driving it into a crowd to kill somebody.
You know, all of it is so confusing. But if we understand that in truth, if we begin to move forward to the idea that we're in the same boat, you realize my poverty and your poverty together have more power to find a solution than my poverty against your poverty. Because my poverty against your poverty feeds the roof. If we don't realize that, and I don't care if someone thinks it's socialist, if we don't realize the government needs to serve the people that have the least, not the people that have the most. The people who have the most have the most. Why is a government serving those people?
But you pointed out, you said if it were a white boy, right, a white male, if, you know, with 5 gunshots, right? You're right, because if it were white women, it still wouldn't be a big deal, because there's a gender inequality in this country too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? When it comes to women, they don't care. Even when it's their own, they don't care. But you also can't leave out the gay, the lesbian, you know, queer, transgender. Like, you can't.
But what's the role of music here? What's the power of music here?
music is the one thing that can enter a room and not get in anyone's way, but touch everyone. It's the one thing. And so as musicians, right, the term musician comes from one who listens or is inspired by the muses. So we're musicians, we're interpreting, we're bringing in these messages from the beyond, from the unseen, to do like the good work, to do the goodwill. That's what we're trying to do. When this guys camp reached out, I'm from Virginia, as is Chris Brown, as is Missy Elliott, Timbaland, the Clips, D'Angelo, so many. All of us are just like, man, what can we do?
I think also that this is the beginning of something that what it should hopefully do is be the beginning of something. We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
But I want it, if possible, to be the birth of maybe, or at least part of an effort to influence the syllabus of what our children learn in school. I mean, because an interesting statistic is that most of this white supremacist movement, those decisions, when in middle school, it may be around you, you may be thinking about it, but the decision where you sort of identify, apparently, from what I understand, a lot of that decision, like, well, I am a white supremacist, or I am a white nationalist, well, I am, a lot of those decisions that you sort of stake as your part of your personality happens in high school. And I feel as though, not that this concert is the single thing, but that it should contribute, maybe in an ongoing way, to inspire a syllabus that will change the way we teach our history, so that people can acknowledge that we all got here in different ways. We all got, but we are all here, but we need to know how we all got here, so we can understand how we relate to each other here.
Know the history?
Yes, but truly know the history, because the way we teach history in this country, whether it's about the genocide of Native Americans, or whether it's about slavery, or whether it's about women's rights, we tend to, because it's written by the people that are in charge generally, we tend to kind of gloss over the mistakes, or whatever you want to call them, that have been made, or the injustices, or the crimes against humanity. America doesn't think that, well, we don't teach our children that what happened to the Native Americans was a crime against humanity, or it continues to happen. We don't think
that's oppression.
We haven't acknowledged that what happened to the African American culture in this country is a crime against humanity, and apologize as a nation for this crime, this hundreds of year crime.
That's what you would hope it becomes.
Sure. And look,
a moment in time in which a nation learned something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Notwithstanding how much progress it had made, but the long road ahead.
Yes. Look, the crazy thing is, a lot of the millennials are, a large portion of the millennials are not into this. They're not into the racism. They don't relate to it. They don't see it that way. A large portion of them. Some of them, their minds were poisoned, by their parents and, whatever environment they were in. But it's really just older folks at the end of the day. Not all of them. It's just some of them. And if we could just bring everyone together to go back to what you were saying earlier in the conversations, which is, what can we do? Well, we got some answers for that. But I think the bigger question and real question is, what will you do? What are you willing to do? Because...
So what would you like for people to be willing to do?
Empathize. If there was a course that we could send around, a very easy course that someone could learn in 15 minutes, but empathy is not that easy to learn.
Why don't you put this in a song?
Because you know what, at the end of the day...
It's different than happy.
I know, but at the end of the day, Mr. Rose, like for me, like, I'm not a politician, but...
You're not a politician, but you are a leader, and you are a role model, and you are someone that millions of people listen to.
Okay.
They listen to you with your music, they listen to you in your performance, they listen to you on social media.
But there's nothing more annoying.
You have a powerful voice.
I appreciate your
And
your opinion and your compliment, but there's nothing more annoying than someone preaching to you. There's nothing more annoying than someone stumping. So what I try to do is like I try to hide it in the gear that I make. I try to hide it in the songs that I make. I try to hide it in any kind of collaborations that I have
music
with
or the
brands.
fashion or whatever.
Yeah, I just try to hide it, you know, because the greatest message are the ones that you discover for yourself.
I think a song like Happy changes the world, and because I don't believe that sadness accomplishes anything. You see something tragic somewhere, you can feel sadness, but if you do nothing, if you don't make even turn to the person next to you and say, that's tragic, how can I do anything about that? How can we stop that from happening? Or if you don't get, sadness doesn't serve a purpose. But I do think that the power, that the music, like as an example, because it came up in the conversation, that song Happy made the world a better place. And I don't mean that lightly. I mean, I truly, truly think the world was improved. And even as that song came on, for me, and I
appreciate that?
I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful to hear it, but I do have to say that I was more so a vessel for that song. Yeah. So I was charged to do something for, a pivotal scene in a film, and had no idea what it could actually mean outside of the context of the film. So I can't really take credit for a task that I was given. I had no idea what it would turn into. I never know.
What has it turned into, in your judgment?
I mean, to things that lead you guys to say nice things like you do, but if anything, just so you guys know, like, I'm the Mr. Magoo of music. Like, I never know where I'm going or what I'm doing. I just keep going, and the melody is what
But you've been a
attracts me.
catalyst, too.
I've been a vessel, and I've been great to be, I'm honored to be used.
So people will see this concert, they'll attend this concert. It's in a stadium in Charlottesville, the University of Virginia Stadium, right?
Yeah. Immediately, I hope that people see this and go, it's not all people saying they want to kill the Jews, or we want to, there is hope in the world. It's not all war. It's not all, and that just that feeling of like, oh,
there's more of that than there is.
Of course there is,
more
but
hope
poison
than there is by far.
Yes, but poison. That, I believe that. I want to be hopeful all the time, because without hope, what's the point? But we have to always remind ourselves to dance in that beautiful part of humanity. The thing that the pain that is common pain has beauty. The pain that separates us, that makes us divided, is ugly, and that's what I want. But I would love this to be something that we come together every year and celebrate what it is to be human today, and what that means for the future, and how to look at our past, and not be like, look at the history of America and say, oh, we should be ashamed. No, but look at the history of America and say, what is the truth about our history? And not wear it like, oh, now I got to walk around like this. It's what is true. Who died, who suffered, who was subjugated, who was tortured, that brought us to this. And with that knowledge, we can be wise. We can be wiser. But if we go forward thinking, I don't know. I get so tired of the denial of the enormous problems that face this country that have to do with race or gender.
Economic inequality.
Economic inequality. Yeah, economic inequality, which makes me crazy how loudly we defend the economic rights of the wealthy.
Economic slavery.
Yes.
How about that?
Yeah, it's what it is. If you have to choose between feeding your kids or fixing your headlight, and then you get pulled over by the cops, and then you get, life, that is economics. That person is an oppressed person because they cannot escape poverty. This country should not be doing the utmost it can for the wealthiest classes. It should not be.
When you took the time away from touring, was it an introspective period for you? Or you just resting?
I know I'm a hyper, and I was writing, and I was spending time with my kids, and I traveled. I got to go back to South Africa again, visit with family and friends there, and I took a trip to Nairobi, and I hope that I'm always thinking about. I think there's always music. I was writing. I hope. I feel like it made me love my band more. It made me miss them. It made me want to do more things in music. It makes me look at my kids and think that if the future, if we manage to survive ourselves, if they can survive us, that the future is going to be okay. You know, I don't know. It's hard to take time off of your own brain, but it was a time for me to, I guess, reflect a little bit on my good fortune and maybe see out of the, you know, you get in the own spiral of your world, and it's hard to see out. It's the problem with a lot of things. It's hard to see outside of yourself.
So where are you in your own life, in your sense of, with all the good things that have happened to you, at the same time, as you said in the beginning, you're a black man in America.
Mm-hmm.
Yet life has been very good for you at the same time. But I hear you saying, I can never be complete until we have some sense of empathy for people who have not had it.
That's right. Everybody deserves a shot, and that's what the American dream promises. It just doesn't really hold up when it comes to us. And by the way, a really rarely known fact is, like, there's more white folks in America that are on Section 8 than there is blacks.
This is the economic truth. I always thought it was interesting. This is something that's just, you know, it resonates in my mind, because when I left the U.S., so I grew up as a kid here, and then I went to South Africa, and at that point, apartheid was still, you know, it was on its last legs, but it was still the system. It was still, people were still being murdered, and to try and maintain it. And then I moved back to, when I finished high school, I still talked like an American. I wanted to come back to America, and I wanted to, you know, I wanted to play music. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to go to the military, and I got my call-up papers in South Africa. I was like, I'm not going there. So I came back to America. But one thing that struck me is sort of, that surprised me, it doesn't surprise me now, but that in the newspapers and in very rarely did they sort of talk about, draw the economic line. They, you know, 50% of people below this income are inclined to, you know, have domestic violence, and, you know, and it goes less as you go up the scale. I was surprised by how often random, different sort of, what I saw as economic reflections were divided into race instead. And I thought that was just strange. And it surprised me, because I guess I was young, and I was ignorant a little, to a great deal of the racism that was so alive in America. I think quite often we draw that line. I just inspired, when you said that, it made me think of that. The truth is that there's more, you know, white people in poverty, quite a lot more white people in poverty than there are black people in poverty, but it's not proportional. But that is easy to identify, because you look at our history and the distance that people have had to travel. I do think it's interesting that we, as in the conversations, very often we draw the race line, but we don't draw it when we're really looking at our history. That's when we don't. Why are things like this? And that's when we don't draw it.
Well, they're like this because they're designed to be this way. That's all. And I just think that, you know, if this concert could bring people together, to have them, like, start realistic conversations about, like you said, history and the way that the things are set up to actually effectuate change, then we can get to a good place where we can actually, like, begin to feel good about what we have here. It's tough. It's tough to feel good about anything when it's only set up for the few. It's only set up for the few. Like you said, you know, the African Americans that are on welfare, like, we don't want any of our people there. We don't, like, our culture has done too much for this country, way too much for this country. And now you're seeing them go left on the Latino population and all that culture has done for this country. It's like, this needs to change.
Yeah.
I'm not a politician. I'm looking in the cameras. Y'all shouldn't get used to this. I'm not doing this a million times. This is where I am right now. I'd rather put it in the music. I'd rather put it in the shows. But to debate, and we didn't have a debate today, but, you know, there are people who love doing that. I don't love doing that. I'm a musician, and that's what I pride myself in being. And I just try my hardest to do my best to put it back in the culture as much as we can. As much as I can do to bring these corporations to understand the things that they can be doing to help us in these communities, the collaborations with other musicians and other people who have some light. That's my job, to organize. Yeah. But I feel like, and I think you do it, and I hope I do it. We don't have to. I think we can serve our society and our community best doing what we do. You know, I think we need politicians that listen to us honestly, and we need leaders that will listen. I think if we initiate conversations, honest conversations about our past and about the possibility of the future and about empathy, and I think there is hope, and that's what I feel. If I have any job, that's it, and that's to sing about it. Yeah.
You know, and not to sing about it, but to sing in a way that unites people, rather than. That's what I think the political power or social power of a song like Happy is, because made me feel like I could take on the world when that song comes on. It still does it to me.
Thank you, Dave.
No.
Great to have you here. Good to see you again. Thank you for coming back to the table.
Thanks for letting me make cartoon noises.
Mr. Rose, thank you.
Pharrell, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
A Concert for Charlottesville, an evening of music and unity, will stream live to a global audience on Sunday on several Oath platforms, including YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. For more about this program and early episodes, visit us online at pbs.org and charlierose.com.